Happy Monday. We welcome you to another edition of 3 Point Stands presented by Mountain Dew. I got my guy, John Roser, on the phone with me, joining us video chat. And Roser, let's talk about the weekend that was. Let's first start with the college football news because that's pretty much taking over everything. The game of the whole weekend that everybody was watching was LSU Alabama. LSU got the big victory over Bama, but however, now the discussion is becoming Joe Burrow versus Tua. Who has more NFL potential? And did we figure out who's going to be the number one draft pick?
Look, Tua has been thought of that he would be the number one pick. The whole tank for Tua was going on throughout, the early part of the season, especially when the Miami Dolphins, who have now won a couple games in a row, but like when they were trading all of their players away, it was like they are tanking for Tua. But now the Bengals have the inside track at the number one pick. I mean, honestly, if you want, who would I take number one? I'd take Chase Young from Ohio State. I'd take the defensive end. I'd take him number one. And the reason I say that is because I don't know if Tua or Burrow are going to be awesome in the NFL. I know Chase Young is going to be awesome in the NFL. But look, quarterbacks are obviously what go number one in the NFL draft. That's what's gone number one the last couple of years, whether the previous 2 years with Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield. But I would take Chase Young number one. That is who I would take number one in the NFL draft. I think he might be the most dominant defensive player we have seen in college football since Ndamukong Suh was playing at Nebraska. And Burrow might have won himself the Heisman on Saturday, though. He might have won himself the Heisman. But if he didn't, if there's a year where somebody else can win the Heisman, this could be a Charles Woodson type year where Chase Young could sneak in there. Now, obviously, he's dealing with the suspension, and that probably is going to just kill his chances. If he really does have to sit out 4 games for the Buckeyes, that'll kill his chances at the Heisman. But no, if you ask me who I would take number one in the NFL draft, Chase Young from Ohio State is who I would take number one.
Chase is still getting a lot of hype news around what's going on with him because, what he's doing for Ohio State is absolutely amazing. Usually that number one draft pick, and of course the Heisman, we always think of quarterback. And after watching Joe Burrow, I think Joe Burrow is really good. Like, I think he's a great quarterback. He's a great football player. However, Tua wasn't fully healthy. And if I saw anything, it was that Tua wasn't fully there. I think they rushed his recovery and, they wanted him to play, especially when you look at that first quarter when he fumbled the ball. It was like, is this the same Tua that we're used to seeing? Of course, LSU, they're stacked and loaded on their roster. Joe Burrow, I would like to see him play in the NFL, and I think we will see him play in the NFL. It's just he doesn't play with a lot of structure, and I think that's what makes Joe Burrow so good. Like, he kind of goes off, the whammy a little bit. I still think Tua might have a little bit more of the NFL potential. When it comes to that number one draft pick, I'm so used to seeing a QB go, and I think it's really up for grabs. When it comes to the Heisman, I don't know. Tua still has time, but I do think after that game, we're mainly saying Joe Burrow after the game.
Well, so let me ask you this. I'll ask this next question for you. If you're Alabama, and I know, and so since we're going with the Heisman, and Joe Burrow may have got himself that Chase Young dealing with suspension, and then with Tua, if you're Bama, do you sit Tua the next 2 weeks? You got at Mississippi State, and then you've got Western Carolina before you play Auburn down at Jordan-Hare. Obviously, you'll need Tua to beat Auburn down there. That Auburn defense is legit. But you don't need to – if you need 2 more weeks to help him get right, healthy, rehab him, work on that ankle, would you sit him for the next 2 weeks and play Mac Jones quarterback?
I would. I think you only put Tua in there when you absolutely need him. Auburn is going to be that game. If Mississippi State, they probably won't be competitive. I was trying to give them some credit.
The last time you saw Mississippi State, they killed Arkansas, and that doesn't even count as beating a Division I college football team beating Arkansas this year.
I know. Well, Arkansas this weekend. We can't even talk about that right now. But yeah, so
they fired their coach.
They did fire their coach, which makes sense. After what we saw, they lost to Western Kentucky. That's a whole other conversation. So I think you're right. I think Tua has to sit for the next 2 weeks. I think after what we saw against LSU, he's just not there. Give him some time, especially when it comes to, Auburn in the playoffs. That's what's more important.
Well, let's switch topics. We're going to go to that. We're going to audible here.
Okay.
Football. That's right. I'm going to go cheesy and corny and call an audible. We're going to go to Arkansas here. And let's talk about Arkansas firing Chad Morris. Obviously, the guy never won a freaking SEC game there.
Right.
So this is now two coaches we have seen in the last 2 weeks not make it 2 years. Willie Taggart at Florida State, Chad Morris now at Arkansas. And I'm just going to go ahead and say it because I know tons of Arkansas friends. Mike Norvell's not taking your job. Mike Norvell does not want your job. Would Mike Norvell take Florida State? I think Mike Norvell would take Florida State.
So?
I do not think – no, he's got to be offered Florida State. I do not think that Mike Norvell would take Arkansas. I think he knows how hard that Arkansas job is. If I'm Arkansas, this is an easy call. You hire Hugh Freeze. You go hire Hugh Freeze from Liberty. You know the guy can win in the SEC. He won the freaking Sugar Bowl at Ole Miss. You know he can recruit players.
Is it too soon? Too soon though? I think sometimes you're gonna have to go and prove yourself. We know he had a lot of other things going on at Ole Miss. I think he's a great football coach. A lot of his players have said amazing things about him when it comes to the off the court issues that they had. It might be too soon. Just he needs another year or two.
Well, here is what can be bigger than it being too soon that can override that a little bit. A desperate program. And I think Arkansas is desperate. Trying to fire Bobby Petrino because he was, had his mistress on staff on the payroll and everything. He got in a motorcycle accident with her from Bielema, the end of Bielema, and these last year and a half, whatever it's been of Chad Morris. I think that Arkansas program might be desperate enough that they would hire Hugh Freeze.
Well, you talked about Mike Norvell going to Florida State. He's not the only person that is up for that job. Some people are saying it's Deion Sanders, which I think you guys got to talk to Norvell on the Chris Vernon show. And Norvell said he wants to stay. Memphis is home. He loves Memphis. When the Deion Sanders news came up, I think that's a good option. That's a great choice. When you talk about recruiting and what players and parents would want, that's that star name that you want. I don't know how he's going to be as a coach. I just know that I like to listen to him when he's an analyst, and he is personable. I think Florida State needs that, especially just after, Willie Taggart. And then they were that top tier program. Let's not forget the days, it wasn't too long ago that they won the national championship. I think Deion Sanders would be a good pick for them. LeBron thinks too.
I should have done this with my Deion Sanders Florida State autographed jersey in the background. I do have an autographed Florida State Deion jersey. I love Deion Sanders. I grew up rooting for Florida State. That was my favorite team growing up outside of Memphis. Florida State was my favorite team because of Charlie Ward and Ward Dunn. And I love Bobby Bowden. By the way, happy 90th birthday. It was last Friday to Bobby Bowden. Happy 90th birthday. Look, do I think Deion would be good? I have no idea. I know he probably doesn't care about the NCAA's rules.
That would be a little difficult. He's going to have someone kind of monitoring him and teaching him what you can and cannot do when it comes to that. But what are the NCAA rules? No one really knows at this point.
Would Deion be? I don't know if Deion would be good or not. I don't know if Deion would be a great college football coach. I mean, that's it. He's helping out. Isn't he coaching a high school in Texas or something right now? Helping out with a high school somewhere in Texas, somewhere, whatever. That's a big jump from that to Florida State. Right. You're talking about from high school to one of the top 10 jobs in college football. That's a massive leap. Would it be entertaining? No doubt about it. And I'm here for that.
It would be epic. It would be, it's better than Harbaugh being at Michigan. It would be those type of press conferences, I cannot imagine what Deion would be saying. So I'm all for it. So really quickly before we run out of time, the rankings come out tomorrow. The college football playoff rankings come out tomorrow. Who's your number one, at least?
I think Ohio State is still going to be number one. I get the LSU thing. I mean, the truth is, it's all going to work itself out anyways. If you're the number one team and you're the only thing that there is, I will say there is going to be a difference in being number one and number two this year. That is going to be a big deal because you're potentially looking at, it appears there are three teams better than everybody else. And that's Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, whatever order you want to put them in. And I can't believe I don't have Alabama in there, but I don't. There's too many holes with that team, and then the Tua ankle, you don't. So I think those are the three top teams. So being number one as opposed to being number two is a big deal. Having to play, if you have to play Clemson in the opening round, as opposed to say whether it's Alabama, Oregon, Georgia. You know, we can't keep Baylor out of there. Baylor's undefeated. They got a big one with Oklahoma this weekend. Who knows? Minnesota, like Minnesota's looking with they've got one. They're on the track to have the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State, and we'll get to see this there. I think for now, I've said I think Ohio State's the best team in the country. I still do. I'll go one farther. I think Clemson's the second best team. I think LSU's the third best team.
Oh wow, I'm totally opposite of that. I would say LSU should be number one for what they did against Alabama, regardless of like Alabama being not the same Alabama that we're used to seeing. They're still a great team, and for what they were able to do, not only they beat Alabama, but they do it in Tuscaloosa. That's my number one team. Ohio State, I would like to see them play somebody else. You know, as we know, they haven't played anybody. They played Maryland. I mean, their offense, like, I don't know what they're averaging in points per game at this point now, but Ohio State and Penn State, that was going to be my game to really check out Ohio State. But after Penn State losing Minnesota, I would put Ohio State at number 2, Clemson at number 3, Alabama at number 4. Fifth spot, I don't know yet. I'm going to give you my top 4. That's it.
Could be Penn State. It could be Georgia. Georgia could move from 6 to 5. How about this? I think most people don't realize this either. I haven't seen what they have been since the Bama game, but LSU going into that Alabama game, Ohio State had a stronger strength of schedule than any of the top 4 teams. The strongest strength of schedule.
Okay. All right.
They kill everybody. They've played some good teams. They just maul them. They're that good.
You know what?
Oh, Buckeye, Ohio. I need a flag. I need a Buckeye flag.
Let's just start singing. That means we have got to go. All right, Blizzard, thanks for joining me. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Thanks for watching 3 Point Stands presented by Mountain Dew.